Food costs seem to only be getting more expensive, so today I'm taking you along in my farmhouse kitchen as I prepare some from scratch budget meals for my family, do some baking, and I want to share some of my tips for saving money on groceries, stretching what we have, and getting the most out of our dollar in the kitchen. Over the last few years in my homemaking, I have learned a lot about ways to stretch our dollar when it comes to what we're spending on groceries, how to go about grocery shopping, some tricks and tips I've picked up, and habits I've formed that really do save us a lot of money. And today I want to talk about those, share with you some of the things I'm making in the kitchen, and then at the end of this video, I'm going to share my entire from scratch pantry list, everything I keep in my kitchen at all times to stay stocked so I can make simple, frugal meals. But before we jump into that, I'm just going to share really quickly what I'm doing right now in the kitchen. I have a lot of cucumbers to use up, so I am making a cucumber salad. Now, I am the only one who eats cucumbers in my home, but this is my way of making cucumber salad. I don't know if it's technically the right way, but it's very easy. So I'm just making up a batch of homemade mayo. I have a recipe on the blog, makingmaplehill.com. And it's very simple, very easy. It's just a cup of oil, some lemon juice, Dijon mustard, salt, pepper, garlic powder, and an egg. And you just blend it right up in the mason jar. And then I'm just tossing it onto the cucumbers with some really finely sliced red onions with some extra salt, some dill, and some pepper. And just shaking it up. And then I let it sit for like an hour or so before I want to eat it. You can eat it fresh, but I just like when the mayonnaise has a chance to get nice and cold. Again, I don't know if that is the proper way to make cucumber salad or not, but that is how I make it, and it's really delicious and it's really simple because then I can just use some of the mayo for other things like sandwiches and things like that. I don't always, I find it's kind of difficult to go through all of the mayonnaise when I make it, unless I'm making something like chicken salad or something like that. So I like using it for that. And then I'm going to be making barbecue chicken thighs for this meal and some potatoes. So, one thing I have learned about saving money in the kitchen is it really matters what cut of meat you get. So I'm just slicing up these potatoes and coating them with some olive oil and seasonings, and I'll roast them in the oven until they're crispy. But cuts of meat are very important when it comes to trying to save some money on groceries. I keep an eye on our local grocery store ads. You know, that grocery store near you that's probably really expensive on everything else, and if you're on a budget, you don't shop there, but they will put out some really good sales. And so, yes, it's an extra place to go to, but I can get chicken thighs there for 99 cents a pound every 6 weeks. And I just want to put a little disclaimer out there that I know if some of the prices I might say might be unrealistic to your area, or maybe you're not even in the United States, maybe you're in Canada. I know things are a lot more expensive in other countries. I think it's just the principles that I'm trying to share. I know that everywhere will be different, but I can get meat on sale there. And I think a lot of us, if we looked around, I think one of the big mistakes we can make in our grocery habits that can be costing us extra money is being creatures of habit and or only shopping at one place, getting everything at one place. Costco, I don't buy a lot of meat there. It's incredibly expensive. Really quick, I'm just seasoning up these chicken thighs with some seasonings like garlic, paprika, salt, pepper, like the usual. And then this is just something I've always done. My mom did this with barbecue sauce, but I take barbecue sauce and I add a little bit of apple cider vinegar and hot sauce to it. It just gives it a good flavor. It stretches it a bit with the apple cider vinegar, making it a little thinner. And I really like it. So that's just always how I've done my barbecue sauce, but I will just coat these and then pop them in the oven for like 45 minutes or so. Thighs take longer to cook through, but they're in there with the potatoes, so it's all just going. And then I have that cucumber salad, and I'm just making some frozen corn. So I'll get back to what I was saying about our habits of grocery shopping, but another tip for saving money on groceries is to buy frozen produce. I don't buy a lot of fresh produce. I will buy like apples, carrots, things like that. But as far as like berries and like corn and things like that, I always buy frozen stuff. My kids actually prefer frozen berries. They don't really like fresh blueberries and strawberries and things. They don't really feel like they have a lot of flavor. And it's because they're picked before they're ripe usually. Whereas frozen produce is usually picked when it's ripe and then because it's frozen right away. Whereas the fresh things have to be picked before they're ripe and then shipped so they don't spoil on the way. But back to what I was saying about our habits, I think we need to be open if we see that we are having a hard time with staying within a budget. Maybe we need to look at where we are shopping and how we are shopping because there's a saying that goes, you either have time or money. And so if you don't have time but you have the money, I mean, I know in a lot of people's case, they might not have both. But if you have the money to save the time by shopping all in one place, then that's great. But some of us have more time but less money. And so we need to use that time to figure out ways to stretch that budget. And so I'm always looking at other store ads. I don't buy everything at one place. I definitely don't buy everything at Costco. I don't buy everything at Walmart. I don't buy everything at Aldi. I just kind of have done some research over the years and I know where I can get things cheaper. And then I try to just keep my eye on the ads and see what I can get on sale. Okay, the next thing I'm doing is whipping up a batch of my go-to bread recipe. It is my fresh milled sourdough artisan bread. I love it. It is that crispy taste of artisan bread, but 100% fresh milled. And it is over on the blog, my blog, makingmaplehill.com. I have a lot of recipes from this video in there, but I will link them below. And then if you just go over there, it's broken up between fresh milled recipes, breakfast recipes, sourdough recipes, it's all broken up and organized, or you can just search whatever recipe you're looking for. But I combine 750 grams of hard red wheat, 250 grams of soft white wheat. Now I know that's a little different. A lot of bread recipes call for all hard wheat, but I do like to add some soft white wheat to my fresh meal bread. I feel like it gives it a great texture. And then 700 grams of filtered water, 150 grams of bubbly sourdough starter, and 20 grams of salt. And then I just mix that up, but I actually don't add the salt right away. I mix it up, everything but the salt, let it sit for about an hour. So I did that right before I started dinner. And then as I'm in the kitchen with dinner, I will just go about my process of making the rest of the bread recipe. But I will take you guys along with that. For dinner, I am doing just some regular tacos. And one thing I have found about cooking from home is something that makes the food just taste so good that you really don't want to buy prepackaged food or spend money on eating out is to add lots of herbs and fresh lemon juice and lime juice. But I'm just heating up my skillet. I'm going to brown some or saute some red onions and bell pepper to make up some tacos. And then I am also going to be adding in some zucchini because we have a lot of that right now. And there really are no rules in the kitchen. And that is another tip I would give you is not being scared to make recipes fit what you have versus feeling like you can't make a recipe because you don't have that exact thing. And I think this is just like a confidence thing that comes with cooking over time. You get more comfortable subbing out different things in recipes. For example, just today I made a chicken pot pie and I had no broth to make like a roux, but I knew I could just do all milk. Like, versus if I had read a recipe and I saw that it said, you know, how, whatever, 2 cups of broth, 2 cups of milk or something. And when I first learned to cook from scratch, if I didn't have that broth, I would have thought, oh, I can't make this now. But over time, you just learn certain things are fine. Like, there's nothing that catastrophic that's going to happen. I remember when I had put up a question box about cooking from scratch on my Instagram, someone said, I'm just afraid I'm going to mess something up. You probably will. You probably will mess something up, and that's okay. You'll have a story about that time you made that really horrible thing, and you'll learn, and then now you've gained a new skill. And I think we can be so scared to try because we're so afraid to mess up, but that is the only way we really learn anything. Experience is the best teacher, is a saying I've heard before, and it's so true that you really can only learn something really well by doing it. You can watch all you want, but until you are doing it yourself and making a mistake and learning, okay, I can't do that, but really I can do this and it doesn't make that big of a difference, you gain that confidence, and it really will save you so much money when you don't rely on recipes as much anymore, and you can look in your fridge and see what you have to make a meal out of. I am not a meal planner. I have tried, and I'm sure maybe I should, but I just don't. It doesn't work well for me, and I think there's a lot of people it doesn't work well for, but we've been told that we absolutely have to meal plan. And I think the only reason we would really need to do that is if we're not comfortable in the kitchen, or, I mean, obviously, other people's circumstances, very busy lives, or something like that. If it works well for you, that is great. But I know there's a majority of people that feel very, int- not intimidated, but very, they just, it's a burden to meal plan. And then the plan doesn't get carried out the way it should, or you have these random leftovers and you don't know how to use them from the meals you planned. My approach to meals is to look in my fridge or freezers and see what I have and then make a meal from that. So if this sounds intimidating to you, what I would do is look through your freezers, look through your pantry, look through your fridge. Write out all the carbs you have, write out all the canned goods you have, write out everything you have, and then look at that list and think, okay, what could I make from this list? If I had, I don't, rice, and then I knew I had some chicken breasts, and I knew I had frozen mixed vegetables, and I knew I had some teriyaki sauce or coconut aminos or something, I could look at that and say, okay, I can make um, stir fried rice. Sorry, my brain kind of cut out on me there. I could make fried rice. I could also look at those same ingredients, and if I have some milk and some flour and some broth, I could say, okay, I can make, chicken and rice casserole. You can start to look at the ingredients and putting them together for different meals versus printing off a bunch of recipes, writing down all the ingredients, going and buying those ingredients, and then if something has to get changed around, now you feel like, okay, well, now my whole plan is thrown off because I used this ingredient for that when I meant to make this. And learning to look at what you have, I know some people call it reverse meal planning, but just looking at the ingredients you have and being able to make a meal from them is a skill that will save you so much money. So back to this dough, I have added, so I let it sit for an hour, added the salt, did my first set of stretch and folds, and fresh milled dough will tear really easily. It's not a big deal. Um, just keep working with it, and I do like 3 or 4 stretch and folds, and then I just let it go until it's about doubled. And then now I am preparing some bagel dough. So this is my fresh milled sourdough bagels. This recipe is also on the blog. These are so delicious. Now, they don't have that super crunch that all-purpose flour bagels have, but they have such a good flavor. The flavor of fresh milled flour and sourdough combined to me is just like chef's kiss. I do not prefer fresh milled yeast breads. I just feel like the sourdough gives them so much more time to absorb the liquid and get a really good texture versus being crumbly from the yeast. It just goes so fast that it doesn't have that time. So I much prefer to use sourdough for my fresh milled. So for that bagel recipe, I do again 100 grams of soft white wheat berries, 400 grams of hard wheat, so you could use hard red or hard white, 250 grams of water, 150 grams of sourdough starter, 50 grams of honey, and 10 grams of salt. And I like the bagel recipe because, unlike the stretch and folds of a sourdough recipe, I just throw it all in my mixer and knead it for like 10 minutes or so. And then I cover it and let it go. And it rises on its own. And I don't have to come back and remember to do any stretch and folds. It is a pretty stiff dough. So I use my dough hook in my mixer and just let it go. And I like to whip it up before I go to bed at night and then let it rise overnight. So in the morning it is ready. But now my sourdough bread is ready. So I just divide it out into two. So this recipe does make 2 loaves. And I just go about the normal shaping process for artisan bread. I use the Batard baskets, but however you normally shape your sourdough bread is how you could go about shaping this one. I shape them, leave them to rest on the counter for about 20 minutes, come back, do my final shaping, put them in a Banton baskets, and then refrigerate them overnight. And bread is another huge money saver. So I know the grain mills are expensive, and for so long, honestly, you couldn't even get one. I don't know if you still can. I got mine off of Facebook Marketplace. It was new in the box, and I got it for $350, which I know is kind of like an insane find. And I'm not saying everyone will find that, but I knew as far as feeding my family, there are certain things that are out of our budget as a family on a single income. Raw milk, buying our meat from farmers. It's just a dream, but it's not something we can really swing right now. But I knew that if I could get a grain mill, if I could get my hands on a grain mill, that would be a huge benefit, or like I guess a huge improvement in the nutrition I was able to feed my family. And it wasn't going to cost me anymore once I paid for the grain mill, because wheat berries are not anymore really expensive than buying all-purpose flour. I buy my wheat berries through Azure. Now I am a drop coordinator through Azure, and so I do get a small credit for depending on the size of our drops order. But even if I didn't, I could buy wheat berries in bulk for significantly cheaper than I can buy flour. I know quite a few of the varieties of wheat berries are less than $1 a pound when you buy like the 25 or 50-pound bag, versus Costco is about $1 a pound for all-purpose flour. And so once I got my hands on that grain mill, I was able to start giving my family really, really healthy bread that honestly, I don't even know if you can really put a price on, because nobody around me at least sells fresh milled sourdough bread. They just don't. And so I knew if I could just get my hands on that grain mill, it would benefit us greatly and wouldn't cost us any more. And the price of bread at the store is just insane. So I feel like I'm really able to save us so much money and provide us such healthy food by milling my own grains at home. And I honestly love the flavor. I just love working with the fresh milled grains. I feel like they work better. They just, yeah, I don't use all purpose flour much anymore. But if you are just starting to make your own bread, start with all purpose flour. Don't let, what is the word, like perfect be the enemy of good? Maybe that's like kind of the saying, like there's good, better, best. Okay, so it's good to buy your bread at the store, I guess. It's better to make homemade bread. Fresh milled grains may be best, but do what you can, do the better, not, don't think, oh, well, I can't do the best, so I shouldn't start at all. Like if you cannot afford a grain mill, that is totally fine. Do the best with what you have and don't worry about the rest. But I stuck my sourdough bread, the artisan bread, in the oven. I preheat my Dutch ovens. I can fit two in my oven, so that does make it really easy and quick. But I preheat my oven with the Dutch ovens inside to 500 degrees. That's really hot. I know not all ovens go up to that heat. Whatever, your oven will go up to for like 45 minutes. Then I put my bread in there, shut the lid, drop the temperature down to 425 for 15 minutes, raise it back up to 450 for 15 minutes, uncover them, and bake them another 15 minutes for the rest of the time. That's it. And then they're done. And then my bagels, I shape them into balls and then I rest them. So I made a double batch here But how I like to do it is shape them in balls, set it aside, and by the time I get through shaping them all into balls, I go back to the first one and begin shaping them like I was just showing you, where I punch my finger in the middle and stretch them out. I find that if you give the bagels a little bit of rest time, they stretch so much better than if you just punch the hole and try to stretch them. They'll either tear or they'll just shrink right back up. And so that's how I like to do mine. And then these will take a second rise. Usually takes in my kitchen like 2 hours or so at least for them to rise. So I just cover them with a damp tea towel and let them go sit on the counter until they're ready to be boiled. And then after I get done shaping those, my bread is just about ready. I like to bake my bread first thing in the morning if I can because it is hot in my farmhouse kitchen in the summertime, but it is so delicious and crispy. I always save a loaf for the midwife from my church because she likes to purchase a loaf off of me, and it's the perfect bread. I can slice it, store it in the freezer. It works out great. Toasts up super well. So for the bagels, I do a water bath of about 6 quarts of water or so. Boiling water, 2 tablespoons of honey, 1 tablespoon of baking soda, and then I drop the bagels in and boil them for 2 minutes, and then flip them and boil them for another 2 minutes before doing any sort of toppings or anything like that. You can top them with everything bagel seasoning, shredded cheese. You could do cinnamon sugar, or you could just leave them plain. I did a few everything bagel and a few cheddar cheese, but bagels are just such a simple staple thing to have on hand. They're so delicious. You can use them for breakfast, you can use them for lunch, for sandwiches, and they just have such a good flavor. They have that chewy texture that is just, that classic bagel texture, but these also have the fresh milled wheat texture. They're absolutely delicious. So that again, this recipe is on the blog, Making Maple Hill. I bake them at 375 for 25 minutes or so. If you're worried whether they're done or not, you can use a like meat thermometer or something to check the internal temperature. They should be at least 200 degrees, and then you can just slice them up, use them however you want. My husband is a fan of them because they're not super crunchy. He doesn't like a super crunchy bread, and these are super soft and chewy. And I cook them up eggs all the time on them with some bacon. It's just the perfect. My son told me this morning when I made him a bagel sandwich with eggs and bacon that I make the best breakfast ever. So I took that as a very high compliment from my 7-year-old. So now moving on, another budget meal I am making. I am actually taking this meal to a friend that is having a hard time. So I am making up some cream soup to make a chicken and rice casserole. And then here I'm just have made some of my homemade protein granola. Again, that recipe is over on my blog, makingmaplehill.com. And I was sending a jar of it with her and then getting the rest stored away for us. But granola is a staple go-to thing for us. It's a snack my son loves, and then my youngest loves it with blueberries and yogurt. I have a homemade yogurt recipe over on the blog. But back to my cream soup. I'm making a cream soup. My cream soup recipe is also on the blog, but it's just butter, and I do a quarter cup of butter I melt in the pot. Now here I'm actually doing a double batch, so I did a half a cup of butter, and then for the recipe on my blog, it's a quarter cup of butter and then a quarter cup of flour and then half a teaspoon of salt, quarter teaspoon of pepper, quarter teaspoon of garlic powder. And you let that get super thick. This is your roux. It's going to thicken your liquid really well and make it super creamy and just have that very like silky cream soup. Now this is like a replacement for store-bought cream soup. So again, just having these types of recipes in your arsenal that you don't need to go to the store to get cream soup because you know you can make it. And then so it's a cup of broth and a cup of milk. I also have a recipe for homemade broth. It's so easy to make your own broth. You can just save the bones from your meat, put them in the crock pot or put them in the instant pot, however you want to do it. And it really makes the flavor of your food so much better. You won't even want to buy store-bought broth or store-bought cream soup because it just tastes so much better than the store-bought version or a restaurant version. But I just simmer that, it thickens up super well, and then I'll set it aside to use in my casserole later on. But another tip I want to talk about when it comes to groceries and having a frugal kitchen keeping those from scratch budget meals on the table is knowing yourself well enough to know what benefits you and what does not. So maybe you are a person who wants to walk in the store and see exactly what's on sale or get those discount deals. And then maybe you are a person who does much better if you can do a pickup where you're not in the store, you're not tempted to buy impulsively. I recently signed up. Walmart was doing $50 for the year membership on Walmart Plus, and it includes free grocery delivery. So, on this day where I'm making this cream soup and all that, we were very busy. We had our Azure drop in the morning. The windows were very small, and I was very low on groceries. There were a few things I wanted to get to add to the meal, and I needed some pans because I only take disposable pans to people who I am taking a meal to. But I decided to get the membership, and it has been wonderful. With everything we have going on in our life, we have a very bustling, busy life. We have a very close church family and just lots of things going on, lots of balls in the air. Being able to have the groceries dropped off on the front porch for me has been a benefit because it saves me time and I don't have to worry about forgetting something on my list. I can just add to the cart as I go on. And if that's something you can do, you do have to tip the driver. So that's something to consider. But I consider it a win because I don't have to leave my house. I don't have to spend the gas. I am not tempted to get a coffee or anything like that. I think it does wind up saving us money. So back to this turkey and rice casserole, and then I'm going to rapid fire my pantry staples. But I have my cream soup. I had made the rice ahead of time. I have a really easy Instant Pot rice recipe on my blog, and I mix it up with actually, it's not chicken, it is wild turkey breasts that my husband's boss had given us. He gave us a bunch of them, and they were in the freezer. So I had slow cooked them before and then just chopped them up and saved them for this that I knew I was going to be making the next day. Added some green beans, just made up a quick casserole in a pan with the cream soup. Got it baking in the oven, 350 for 30 minutes is like a general casserole rule. But in order to keep all these from scratch meals flowing in our kitchen at all times, I have a pretty basic stock of the essential from scratch ingredients so I can throw meals together at any time. And I'm just going to rattle off the different categories to you guys everything I keep in my kitchen. I have this in a blog post on the blog, makingmaplehill.com, and I also has a free printable version. If you just put in your email, it'll send you the free printable, and I'll link that below. But as far as pantry staples, I keep baking powder, cocoa powder, cornstarch, cornmeal, baking soda, sugar, flour, oats, chocolate chips, nuts, salt, spices, olive oil, coconut oil, lard. Well, I don't keep lard anymore, but actually that's not true. I do have lard in the basement from some pigs we had butchered, um, popcorn kernels, lemon juice, yeast, peanut butter, honey, molasses, maple syrup, jam, ketchup, hot sauce, coffee, white vinegar, apple cider vinegar, and then dry goods. I keep things like pasta, tomato sauce, diced tomatoes, tomato paste, rice, dry beans, split peas, salsa, canned tuna or chicken. And then broth. I have canned my own broth, or if you buy broth from the store, just keeping that stocked up. And then for produce, I like to purchase produce that's in season. If it's not, I try to opt for frozen. But apples, strawberries, blueberries, bananas, I buy things that will store well. So onions, carrots, cabbage, squash, potatoes, celery, and then I will in season buy peppers and different things like that. I like to keep lettuce on stock, lemons and limes, and then fresh garlic. If you like fresh garlic, real quick here, what I'm doing is making a fresh milled pound cake. I again have this recipe over on my blog. I did realize I should have been whipping in the eggs one at a time when I get to that part, but that is the only tweak that I would make. It was delicious and we had it as a dessert. It was great. But back to my list. For dairy, I keep milk, cheese, yogurt, heavy cream, butter, and cream cheese. Proteins, I keep things like whole chicken, chicken breast, chicken thighs, ground beef, pork chops, bacon, sausage, roasts, eggs. And then snacks, I just keep it really simple. I don't buy any prepackaged snacks. I just keep tortilla chips. Sometimes I get hummus. Some deli meat is a go-to for us, especially in the summertime when we just want a lot of sandwiches and things. Applesauce, and then dried fruit like raisins, cranberries, things like that are really easy snacks. But if you have a list like that and you keep a stock like that, you will pretty much be able to make almost anything you want to from scratch. And again, I have that whole printable list on my blog, and that's just been the thing I've worked towards, is keeping the ingredients to make all of the from scratch meals. It really makes it so that you can look around and throw together a meal from what you have without feeling stuck or pinned down to a recipe that calls for a very certain ingredient that you will probably not even wind up using. I know that I had that for a long time. I just felt like I needed to stick to a recipe or I was going to mess something up. But you really do just need to keep trying, keep practicing in the kitchen. You will discover what works for you, how you like to grocery shop, all of the things that come with practice to make your kitchen frugal and efficient and have really delicious food coming out of it. Because as you learn, you will love cooking from scratch. I tell my husband all the time that the only reason I ever really want to order out is because I don't want to wash the dishes. Last thing I'm making here is some homemade whipped cream. My husband got me this whipped cream dispenser for Christmas this past year, and I've absolutely loved it. It's so easy. You just do 2 cups of cream, a third a cup of powdered sugar, a pinch of salt, and then some vanilla, and you pour it into the what should be a chilled canister. I've realized I was supposed to be chilling my canister in the freezer, but all you do is whisk it up, pour it in there, and then charge it with the cartridge, and it immediately makes whipped cream. You don't have to get your mixer out or anything like that, worry about over whipping it. And again, I have that recipe on my blog, makingmaplehill.com. It's just like whipped cream dispenser recipe. But thank you guys so much for stopping by the farmhouse and spending some time with me in my from scratch kitchen. If you are new here, my name is Maddie, and I make a new video every single week on cooking from scratch, homemaking encouragement, and life here in our 1800s farmhouse. So don't forget to subscribe if that is the kind of content you are looking for, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.